Couple reasons. Number one, we want them to be aware of our daily practice schedule. That would be helpful. What are the drills that we're going to do today? As I was a teacher, I always gave an objective before my lesson. Well, sometimes I cannot meet with all the players before we hit the field. They need to know what our objectives are for that particular day. We also post our depth chart. There is nothing more frustrating than to actually go to practice and then ask, well, where is such and such? They are the second line player and they need to be over here, and then trying to find a replacement for them. That's all downtime, and we don't have any downtime when it comes to special teams. We also put our program notes up there and our special considerations, as you can see from the slide. Who got weekly honors, nationally, conference-wise, team-wise, and then anything else that's important. We also give the Talent Award. Who is the special team player of the week? And we extend that Talent Award to be 2, because we also want the look player or the look squad player of the week. And a lot of our look squad players then come up to me and say, you know, Coach, am I ready? Am I ready to make the bus? And I think that's extremely important. The next situation is there is a problem with special teams, they come to the special teams coordinator. If an assistant coach said something, I will then listen to the player, and then I will then sit down with the coach, and then I will have to see what's going on and see if we can rectify the situation. Most of the time it's on depth chart and playing time, and then I take care of that, and then I actually, if we have to, talk to the head coach about it. The next thing we do is to set the tone. They need to watch film twice a week, and they need to sign in, just like going to the weight room. Special teams clips are available. It probably takes no more than 5 to 10 minutes to look at it. And when we have our final meeting of the week on Friday, we generally just talk a little bit about what they saw and what to expect, just to refresh their mind. The next slide that you're looking at is our depth chart. I'm not going to go into the depth chart in detail, but you can see that any one given time, every single position has been labeled with player's name. This happens to be an older depth chart, so the players' names on here, these players are probably all graduated. But the depth chart has never changed. Another one of my philosophies as special teams coordinator. Don't change the way you present information to your players. They get used to what they're going to do, they fit into a pattern, and they know where to look immediately. This chart will be blown up on 1117 paper, thanks to our Xerox copying machine, and we will try to keep it in color as much as possible so that the players can recognize where they are on the depth chart as soon as possible. The next situation that we're going to take a look at here is our planning. And we believe at Montclair State that planning perfect practices powers peak performance. I know you know the other 5 P's, but this is ours. There's no way, if you don't plan properly, you don't plan well in advance, are you going to have solid special teams. And keep this one thought in mind. Every big game that you watch, including the Super Bowl, a special teams play was the turning point of that particular game. When you take a look at planning the practice, you also need to think about how you're going to present that information. We do have a teaching progression at Montclair State. Number one, we will always teach what we do on the field in the classroom. Now, unfortunately, our meeting is once a week for our weekly practice, and that occurs on a Monday. That's why I have numerous postings in case people, players, need to refer back to them. It is generally either by PowerPoint and video, always video analysis, and our players are expected to take notes. We then go out sometimes onto the field and do a walkthrough, or we do it right in the classroom. From the walkthrough, we go to guided practices. If you watch the tape on maximizing special team effectiveness. You'll see our circuit training in our group drills. But guided practice means that there will be a coach assigned to an individual station improving basic fundamentals. From there, we move on to game day kind of drills, which will be our group and then our team. That's the way it is done all the time for special teams at Montclair State. Now what we're going to take a look at is preparing for the actual installation of our special teams. And we're going to look at preseason, or what we call camp installation. As you look at this slide, you're going to notice that the special teams are going to be broken down into 3 distinct segments of the practice schedule. As we look at it, you have to remember the number 3 as you go through looking at this practice schedule. But before we look at 3 horizontally, we need to look at the middle vertical column. The night before the practice in camp, we will have a 45-minute meeting on special teams with the emphasis on what's going to happen the next day at practice. At those meetings, we will go over our philosophy, let's say, of our punting game. We will go through our count. We will understand what each player needs to do. And at the same time, we're going to talk about the drills necessary to get the job done. Sometimes we have a 30-minute meeting prior to that 45 with the specialist what's inside the unit. In our punt situation, it would be our personal protector, so that the new people that are coming to our program get a jump on how we actually count the protection scheme. The next situation that we look at is the practice itself. When you look vertically on this particular chart, note 45 minutes. That 45 minutes will be broken down into 3 segments. The first one is 10 minutes long, the next one is 10 minutes long, and the next one after that is 25 minutes long. The first 2 segments are back to back, but we do different things. We do that 20 minutes into the practice plan. Initially, when we come out on the field, we are reviewing offense and defensive practice strategies or our schemes that we're going to utilize that particular day in practice. That's because we don't have any pre-meetings due to class schedules during the week, such as the Division I teams do. So we do a 20-minute walk-through, warm-up kind of situation. Now, the first 10 minutes is called the individual drills. There we might, especially in preseason camp, do our stations. Sometimes our circuit training stations carry over to the third segment, which is called component drills and team. We're not worried during camp of putting in every single scheme immediately. We have time to do that, and there's a progression in our teaching as well as installation in order to get that done. The 10 minutes in the middle of the 3, which follows directly from the first 10 minutes of individual, is called the specialist period. And here, over the past couple years, is where we have maximized the drill time for a lot of different special teams players. In the beginning, it was just what I call pass, punt, and kick contests, where the kickers would kick, the centers would snap, and the returners would catch the ball. Well, we have now built in more time to do more things with that 10 minutes. When you first look at this particular slide, it's going to look like there's a lot going on and it's very complex. What I'm going to try to do is break this slide down for you and show you what we do during preseason. You're going to see the same slide during the in-season, and we're going to show you how we modify it to make special teams even more important and get it closer to being a game day situation. I want you to start with your eyes to the right of the screen. On the right of the PowerPoint, you're going to notice OL and DL. During that 10 minutes, the offensive line is working on their protection schemes for extra point and field goal. The offensive line coach, who is also our head coach, will be working on that on those techniques. He usually does that on days prior to us actually going to execute a live field goal protection block kind of situation. At the bottom of the screen, the defensive linemen are working on being pushers or grabbers for our block scheme on our extra point and field goal block. Do they do those drills every day? No, but they will do them the day before we actually go to the pad, or maybe on the same day that we're going to go to our extra point and field goal live. As your eyes traverse across the screen, moving from right to left, I want you to notice that we have our punters with a coach assigned, long snappers with a coach assigned, and then also our punt returners with a coach assigned. Our punt returner coach will also sometimes do a dual job with our kickoff returners right opposite him. In this particular time period of 10 minutes, our punters will punt the ball from a direct snap from the center, and each coach is working on their technique to make it better. And they will either do a sky punt or a directional kick. We are primarily a directional kick team, but we might want to sky it when we want a fair catch ruled. So we do both. We will also change the direction of the punters and kickers on different days so that we can execute different parts of the drill, different parts of the punt and punt and returners kind of things that they do in the game. On the left-hand side, initially we used the jugs machine for the kickoff returners, and sometimes we will actually have our kickoff people kick down towards the end zone. When we flip it the sides for the punter, we will have the kickoff live with an actual kickoff guy. We don't do that immediately on day 1 or 2 because I like my kickers to work on their extra point and their accuracy first, build up a leg, a little stronger leg, and make sure they're totally stretched out before we kick off. We also not only flip the practice with the punters, but we also change from the right hash to the left hash, and everybody flips over. That's because we're, again, as I said, a directional kickoff team as well as a directional punting team. On the opposite side of the field, I have the one coach working with our gunners and our swatters. They're working on punt protection, obviously, and punt coverage. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have my front line and who's ever available from my second line of the kickoff return handling different kinds of kickoffs, from squib kicks to drive kicks to pop-ups, and also my second line people will work on eventually flipping the ball back to a returner. We have found in the past that a lot of teams do not want to kick to our returners, and we're going to kick to that second line, and yet you have plenty of time to flip that ball back to that returner and get it into the proper hands. I always like using my best personnel to do the best job that they're prepared to do. That front liner or second liner in the kickoff return is really a blocker. His job is not to run the football. And in the middle of the diagram is our extra point and field goal unit personnel with the short snappers working on that particular aspect of the game. Organization is the key to all of this specialist period. This slide shows my players, and again, it's one of my posted signs, especially during camp, who's responsible to go where in which part of the drill, the specialist drill, on any given day. You'll also notice the holders. If they do something else, the time period is there for them to hold. 5 minutes and 5 minutes. That means they're doing something else for the other 5 minutes. It also tells them who's first and who's second. You also notice that there's a long snapper and a short snapper. So they know when to rotate during the practice plan in order to do that. The players know who are the gunners and swatters, as well as the punt returner and the kickoff returners. And then, of course, depending upon all other positions, they would be listed. The next slide shows our kickers and punters, what their job responsibility is, and also the direction during the specialist period of where they're going to go. If you take a look at the chart, you'll notice the type of kick. Let's look at the punters first. Sky kick, or directional, okay? It'll also tell them if they're doing any other drill during that period of time, and I'm going to explain what the tunnel drill is all about. And then, which hash are they kicking to or from? And by the way, if you set up your kickers, then the returners will know where to go. And that makes this very, very simple. It also tells them how many days they have to prepare for maybe a scrimmage or some other kind of action. The tunnel drill has been extremely successful for us during that specialist position. It doesn't matter who is involved in the tunnel drill. Keep in mind, the linemen that you see here protecting us and the wings are not there. What is there are 4 rushers towards the kicker. Of course, we're only going to rush one guy at one time. There's going to be a long snapper and there's going to be a punter. Well, why do we call it the tunnel drill? There are too many kickers that take way too many steps, and they usually don't punt the ball straight ahead. Some punters have a little tendency to move to their right or their left. If you are thinking about punt blocking, you need to consider this, because the block point, everybody thinks, is directly in front of the kicker. That might not be so if the kicker does not punt straight ahead. The reason why we work on it is because it's based on our protection scheme. We are going to create a pocket for that kicker, and that is the kicker's safe zone. If they get out of the safe zone, there's going to be some problems. Now, you might be wondering why I typed agile bag. We make that tunnel or that safe zone using agile bags. In the beginning, the zone is a little wider, then we narrow it. It also helps the kicker with his punting mechanisms to stay linear. Sometimes I actually take 2 coaches or 2 players or 2 dummies and stand them up at the corners of the front of the bag. This works on center accuracy. Our centers do not like that. They think it's a distraction. Centers need to understand that they are probably 90% of when a punt goes awry, because they didn't put that ball in a good position to keep the kicker gathered in their normal mechanism to get a maximum flight to the ball. And so that tunnel that is created helps with center accuracy. And that's our tunnel and pressure cooker drill, by rushing a guy, snapping the ball, and having the punter stay in his safe area. We do have some drills that we utilize for our punt returners. I am just going to quickly show you these quick drills, and the more or the elaborate form of learning about the drills is in Special Teams Strategy Tape number 2, where we actually go through all our circuit drills and our training. This particular drill is a simple north-south drill, just teaching the returner to get upfield and make a break and then continue straight up the field trying to run inside the tunnel. The read and react drill is to get them to understand that at the last minute, they might have to change their direction and then continue to move straight up the field rather than head to the sidelines where you're probably not going to get around most good punt coverage teams. The next thing that we do, and that's extremely important during the preseason camp as it comes to a close, is we do a drill called kick the field. I'm not going to go through every situation, but what we want you to understand is that you need to run some kind of live special teams scrimmage, whether you do it live or whether you do it on air, where players are running on and off the field with different requirements. We do this. We also have a look squad. We usually do this in helmets and shoulder pads. It's a very lively drill, and sometimes it takes us 2 practices to get it done. It's working on all the special situations that you need to consider that go on during a game, besides all of your normal stuff that you would normally do. We, at times, have been unfortunate at Montclair State, based on the schedule in the New Jersey Athletic Conference, not to have a scrimmage or a scrimmage with an opponent. So what we devised during those years is to have what we call a red-white scrimmage. What we basically do is divide the staff in 2. We then try to develop a depth chart of number 1 and 2 line players, and we actually go ahead and have a very short scrimmage of live special teams. Of course, we wouldn't take returners down to the ground, but we definitely would get a good wrap on those players. If you notice in the next slides, okay, the red-white team scrimmage, this will give you an idea of what we're going to be working on. We actually play 4 quarters, and what we also do with the 4 quarters is keep score. And the guys like that, the red team and the white team, and we're winning by 1 and all of that kind of stuff. Except, you don't have to win by 2 in this game. 1 point's enough. Yogi said that a long, long time ago. You only need 1 more than the other team in order to win. So we have a lot of fun with that. The next thing we do is we have 1 hour of practice dedicated to special situations. For example, kicking out of your end zone and taking a safety. Very important. What happens if you have to, you got a safety and the other team is going to kick off? Or punt. Guys get confused that when they see the punter, the kickoff return team doesn't go on. You need to talk about those situations. Sometimes during practice, you need to work with a wet ball if it hasn't rained during camp. All these things on special teams need to be done. After looking at the slide, I'm sure you understand what I mean, and you can use this as a checklist to go ahead and build your practices and make sure you've taken care of all of those situations. The next thing is we script everything that we do. What you're looking at right now is the preseason practice schedule and meeting schedule for 2 days of camp. This happens to be this year's schedule as you look at it. And if you notice, on the far right-hand side is what we do at the evening meeting. You notice to the left of that is the Red Hawk, because obviously we're not practicing that day, but that meeting will now lead into the drills that you see at the bottom of this particular side, and you notice it's broken down into the 3 segments. Again, you need to be consistent in what you're reporting to your players so that they get a firm grip of what's happening. Okay, now let's take a look at our in-season practice. A lot of people ask me, how do you start getting ready for practice and special teams? Well, it all starts with scouting report. And what we do is we break down film immediately. We get film 3 days prior to, we get film 10 days prior on an opponent, which means 2 games away, and then we actually get another game video. And because we are on the internet in terms of exchange, eventually we get quite a few more tapes. what are we looking for? And I'm not going to go through the whole list, but of course you're looking, do they huddle, don't they huddle, alignments, and assignments. We're also looking for some weak links or places, people that we can crack in their particular system. And then from there, we actually build the practice schedule. You can see what I do on what days. It's quite self-explanatory. And